6 mythical creatures that existed in real life. For the most part, myths are stories of old, once told by those who wanted to explain a phenomenon or by parents who wanted to scare their kids into good behavior. But because we're so much more rational than our ancestors were, we modern humans know better than to believe in them. Most of us anyway. We're looking at you, Bigfoot hunters. But what if you knew that some mythical creatures actually existed, or at least were based on reality? How would you feel knowing you're sharing the planet with terrifying vampire-like creatures and gigantic deep-sea krakens? Well, you're about to find out. While most myths are based on nothing but a bag of popcorn, today we're counting down 6 mythical creatures that existed in real life. Welcome to another episode of Top Quick Peek. And if you're wondering whether the werewolf is more than just a legend, then you'll definitely want to stick around for number 1 because you'll be terrified. Strap in and let's get started. Number 6. Vampire Deer. Meet the vampire deer, a real-life mythical monster. Looking like an animal out of a Blade movie, these unique deer grow some pretty scary-looking teeth. The term vampire deer is actually a nickname for a Chinese water deer, which, despite its name, is mostly to be found in European countries. The thought of encountering a blood-sucking deer in the forest is quite unnerving to say the least, but don't fret. These guys couldn't suck your blood even if they wanted to, because those teeth are just for show. While you'd expect a male deer to grow horns on top of its head like the rest of the species, this specific subspecies of musk deer grows vampire-like fangs from its upper jaw instead. Its cute, teddy-like features coupled with those long canine teeth make them look like something straight out of a fairy tale. These white-bellied musk deer are an endangered species, highly vulnerable due to their prized musk pod commonly used as a base note in expensive perfumery. There are only a few surviving in the wild, meaning these wonderful creatures may soon become a myth after all. Real quick, before we move on to our next mythical being, we have a quick challenge that'll take just 5 seconds. Here's the deal, you leave us a like, smash that subscribe button, and turn on notifications, and you'll win 10 years of incredible luck. Try it, it actually works. Number 5. Hobbits. Everyone knows hobbits as the mythical creatures that once saved Middle-earth from a treacherous piece of jewelry. But what's less common knowledge is that a small-statured race of proto-humans with primitive feet really did walk the earth with larger humans about 200,000 years ago. In 2003, archaeologists found the remains of a 3-foot adult female in a cave on a remote Indonesian island. Initially, they speculated the skeleton might have belonged to a person with dwarfism, which is nothing new. But what set this skeleton apart was the presence of extremely large primitive feet, though scientists failed to mention if they were particularly hairy. There also appears to be a disappointing lack of evidence of elvish ears, so scientists may not be as quick to buy into the existence of hobbits as Lord of the Rings fans would be. Since 2003, scientists have found far more examples of these real-life hobbits and have classified them as Homo floresiensis. No, they did not find them in the Shire, and no one really knows how these olden-day hobbits went extinct, but it's nice to think of them as mythical creatures. Number 4. Chupacabras. The chupacabra is not only downright terrifying, but it's not as old and mythical as you probably thought it was. The chupacabra is a vampiric creature first sighted at the beginning of this century in Puerto Rico, which means it's not only Latin, but it's a millennial as well. Chupacabra is Spanish for goat sucker, but it's also been said to drain the blood of dogs, cats, chickens, rabbits, and other domesticated animals. Now, we're not so sure about the blood-sucking part, but there is evidence that such a creature exists, as people have actually killed or found corpses of animals believed to be chupacabras. Finders usually describe them as having a dog-like appearance with thick, hairless skin like an elephant. Chupacabra corpses almost always turn out to be coyotes suffering from a severe form of mange, a disease which causes them to lose their hair and look terrifying. If you've ever been shocked by the sight of a hairless chihuahua, you can probably see how a person might mistake a hairless coyote for a blood-sucking monster. Well, there's an easily solved mystery. Number 3. Bunyips. The bunyip is a little like Australia's Loch Ness Monster, in that it lives in the swamps and rivers and has never been photographed despite the fact that hundreds of people claim to have seen it. The bunyip is an Aboriginal legend said to look like a cross between a crocodile and a horse, and according to Australian history, the name means devil. Supposedly, bunyips stalk and kill human beings and are said to make an unnerving hollow boom sound, like a shotgun. But there may be some proof of its existence, or at least enough to trace back its mythical origins. In 1839, the remains of an animal called a diprotodon was discovered in Australia, which proved that a huge, rhino-sized marsupial similar in appearance to what people have described as the bunyip indeed once roamed the outback. It's unlikely they stalked and ate humans, as the diprotodon was actually a herbivore. But it's not hard to imagine that an angry diprotodon would react similarly to an angry rhino or hippo when disturbed by humans who hunted them. Diprotodons died out about 20,000 to 40,000 years ago, which was long after the arrival of the Aboriginal people. This suggests the legends might have come from real-life encounters between humans and these real-life bunyips. Number 2. Dragons. 4th century BC Chinese historian Chang Qiu once discussed dragon remains that were found in the region that is now known as the Sichuan province. It's likely that similar fossils were also known in Europe, giving rise to the stories and legends of fire-breathing monsters. One probable hypothesis for the origin of the dragon legend is the discovery of dinosaur bones, such as those of the Dracorex hogwartsia. Dracorex hogwartsia was a 25-foot-long, dragon-like dinosaur, and its name in Greek for Dragon King of Hogwarts. Yes, the fossilized dinosaur got its name from a bunch of school kids. But if fossils aren't enough to inspire the imagination, it's also likely that medieval people encountered actual dragons in Indonesia, home of the fearsome Komodo dragon. According to the Smithsonian, wild Komodo dragons can weigh more than 150 pounds and can exceed 10 feet in length. And unlike what most of us are taught to believe, medieval dragons weren't necessarily enormous. Raphael's famous painting of St. George and the Dragon depicted a beast no larger than a lion, not too far off from a real-life Komodo dragon. Sorry to burst your bubble there, but neither of these creatures had wings, so it's unlikely that dragons were ever ridden by blonde Khaleesi's and incinerated entire armies of White Walkers. But if you put a medieval knight in the same room with a Dracorex hogwartsia or a Komodo dragon, chances are he'd probably believe dragons were real. It's now time for today's subscriber pick. Today's photo was sent to us by a subscriber wondering about this mythical creature. If you too come across a photo online and want us to look into it, just send it over to us and we may even feature it in one of our future videos. So we looked into this 4-eyed goat with 4 horns, and the only thing that comes close is this footage we discovered of a not so mythical 2-headed goat. Its mutation is actually the result of a well-known genetic disorder, so it's more likely this legendary picture was photoshopped. Oh well, but let's make it up to you with our final mythical creature on today's list, and that's number 1, werewolves. Before you go nuts thinking guys like Taylor Lautner and their impossible six-packs can shapeshift into vicious wolves, sorry, but the sexy werewolf is definitely a millennial legend. However, there is a pretty logical explanation that may have given way to the myths. You see, back in medieval times, there was no such thing as vaccination, and rabies was common not only in wild animals, but also in the family dog. And a bite from a rabid animal could transform an upright gentleman into an irrational, clawing, drooling animal that might attack and bite his or her friends and loved ones if he was in the mood. Once a person was bitten, there was no way to stop the virus from taking over. And if that person happened to be particularly hairy, well, you can see how the werewolf legend might have been born. And that's it for the mythical creatures that existed in real life. Did we miss out on any? Let us know in the comments below if you've ever encountered a living legend.